Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. One of the best, most beautiful, and most heartbreaking documentaries of the year is also nominated for the Academy Award for Best Documentary. Minding the Gap follows a group of skateboard boys from adolescence to adulthood and all of the trials and traumas in between. Let's take a look.
Take one.
How did you get disciplined?
I mean, well, they call it child abuse now, but...
Life might be moving.
Everybody, please put your hands together for the director of one of the most beautiful films of the year, Bing Liu. Let's hear it. Congratulations. Not an easy film to make. It took you a number of years. Even when you were finally assembling it, I imagine it wasn't an easy film to make emotionally. But congratulations on all of the success, all of the rightful success that you've gotten this year. I don't think I had a more moving experience with a movie this year. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
5 years in the making, really your whole life sort of in the making as well, living this story. When did you realize, when did you look around and think to yourself, this group of friends that I had that were my close friends 15 years ago could make a good documentary now?
Well, a lot of it was constructed. I didn't actually know these boys too well, but they were part of this larger community of skateboarders that I considered my found family, right? So as I entered my late adolescence and early 20s, I found myself really wanting to, just grow as a person and become, better than some of the things I saw in my household growing up. But at the same time, I was seeing just peers just take on old patterns and sort of accidentally become their parents. And so I was sort of scared that that was going to happen to me. I was going to become like my stepfather. It was the scariest thing to me.
Can I ask, do you feel like, this is a personal question, it's not that closely related to the film, did you feel like you had someone in your life that was helping pull you out of becoming like your family, whereas these guys didn't? Because I definitely had friends and relationships like that, and I look back and I look at them now, and I had a teacher or like a guy that owned the record store that I hung out with that was like, don't do this, you're smarter than this, whereas a lot of the friends that I had, they didn't have anything like that.
I did. I mean, that's what, like, with these stories of, just young people who sort of struggle to grow up and become better versions of themselves, like, so much of the time, these mentors are cut out, right? Like, these positive influences. For me, I had that, but I think I also struggled with just being able to accept that and to really be receptive to it. As a high schooler, I had English teachers, especially, who I felt were just giving me positive reinforcement. And it wasn't even that, they reached out that hard. It was like I would write a paper, or I'd write something, and they would just say, you have a beautiful way of expressing your words, and these sort of ways that adults can validate you and just make you feel like like you matter. I mean, anytime anybody did that was an adult, it just even if I couldn't accept it fully back then, I think I clocked it on the subconscious level.
So now you're out of college, right? You're a professional cinematographer. You've shot for some television shows, right?
Well, yeah, so I came up through the camera department on a lot of TV shows and movies I shot in Chicago for many years. So.
Were you on *Halt and Catch Fire*? Was that one of them? Excuse me.
I wasn't.
Did I miss that?
No.
I thought I read that somewhere. Okay, back to the interview. When did you start going back and looking at this footage and start thinking to yourself, maybe there's a story here?
About 3 months before we picture locked. No, I'm serious. Like, the archival stuff that's in there was like so like an afterthought. It was so much of it. Like, yeah, it was like so my first year of doing this, I was like 23. I went around the country and I was interviewing skateboarders all over the place to try
28 now, 29?
I'm 30
30
now.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm collecting these stories from people all over, and it's like thematically it has a lot to do with the film, what the film became, right? Like fatherhood, growing up, masculinity, violence in the home. And then a year in, I go back to the town that I grew up in, Rockford, Illinois, and that's when I meet one of the guys who becomes the main character, Kier Johnson, and I fall in love with him. I fall in love with the story. He's 8 years younger than me, though, so I didn't really know him. But there's this other guy, Zach, who I did know a little bit, and when I bumped into him again, his girlfriend was 8 months pregnant, and he's very self-aware about this too, but he wasn't aware or he wasn't prepared for like what fatherhood was going to be. So it seemed like a trackable story. And around that time too, I started working with Kartemquin Films in Chicago, where I was living, and they're best known for the documentary Hoop Dreams.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started sort of like freebasing, all this like verite docs, and I was like, that's probably a
like
terrible way.
a long pause between freebasing and docs, or it's like,
Right. Yeah. That's when I started freebasing drugs.
Yeah.
No, that's when I started freebasing. Like
I
those.
was working really fast and hard on the documentary. I was cutting a lot.
I just got it done in 1 year. No, it was so. That's when I realized, because I mean, before that, the way I conceptualized docs was, like Ken Burns, sort of talking head docs. But then I realized, like, no, documentaries can be like fiction films in the way that, you track characters and, they have a journey. And through that, that's how you get at themes. You put story first. So I really, fell in love with that. And that's when I started really committing to just these two boys.
When you were going around and you were interviewing skateboarders around before you found your central characters, were you looking for themes that connected all of these skateboarders, things that you related to or remembered from your time skateboarding?
I looked for people who I felt like this similar wavelength with, and who I felt like would be emotionally open to process things.
What kind of things?
Trauma in their past.
You were aware when you started that you wanted to talk about trauma and past trauma.
Yeah, and it was because I think before this project, I'd made two, like 25-minute docs, and a lot of those conversations in those docs that we talked about had to do with just, things in one's inner life that maybe people haven't shared with other people before because they were traumatic.
Can I ask, one of the thrilling aspects of watching the film is watching the layers peel on the story. And one of those layers is when you involve yourself in the film, which feels like it was a decision that was made halfway through making it or 3/4 of the way through making it. And I'm curious if you knew when you were doing these early documentaries and when you started doing these interviews that you were also processing your own trauma and trying to deal with your own past.
Yeah, I was trying to do that, and like to that at the beginning, I thought like I'm gonna process it through just by proxy in a way, like it's these are themes that these people are dealing with. It's also themes that I'm dealing with. I don't need to be in the film. About halfway through, there's this moment where one of the characters tells me that there's one of the other characters is being abusive. So that changes everything because I have to all of a sudden consider, well, what does this mean in terms of my role, even outside of making this film, right? Like I have to consider safety, ethics, how I'm influencing or not influencing, or possibly endangering, this relationship that I'm also have been documenting for a few years.
Well, I want to get to that, but I guess what I'm referring to, I got the impression when I was watching the film that you didn't know you were going to dive into your own family's story.
Right. And so like that, like what I just told you was sort of backstory to give you the problem that I had to solve, and one of my solutions was to put myself in the film. And at first I thought of it just as, like, well, I'm going to show you the filmmaker's mindset now. Like, it's not really about like my story. That's when I first conceptualized it, it was like, it's not really about my story. It's just about like showing you the filmmaker's decisions, because, it's like it like toes the line between, exploitation and trying to tell a good story and doing right by, these people. At least if I show you, like my conscious, like my internal moral compass while I'm doing these things, maybe the audience can just at least empathize with why I'm going to go deeper into this.
One of the most thrilling yet heartbreaking moments of the film is your interview with your mother. You interview her kind of throughout, but there's really one specific moment where you get to the heart of the matter, and it becomes almost a kind of confrontation, a very sensitive confrontation. You're not interrogating her necessarily, although you are interviewing her. And I was struck by your composure throughout that and your ability to get through that. Do you think that had to do with your preparation or being able to be behind the camera? What do you think it was that helped you remain so seemingly objective through that interview?
It's probably the defense mechanisms I learned as a child, right? Like I lived in a household where I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. Like that feeling of anxiety followed me to school. It followed me to public spaces. And, as a young kid, I had to learn how to deal with that and just like hold everything in. That's the most immediate answer I could give you, in like, in this reptilian sort of way.
And when you started realizing that there was an abusive relationship within the space of your documentary, that one of your subjects was potentially abusing his partner, or was, excuse me, how did that make you feel? What did you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, it was the mother of his child who was telling me, and I was learning in real time while I'm filming. And I think the first thing I thought was like, I don't know if everyone's gonna believe her. Like, I have to like help her story be validated now. So I had to. So that's
Why do you think that was? Why did you think that not nobody, but why did you think that a lot of people wouldn't believe her?
I mean, we live in a culture that's sexist. It's male dominated. It's patriarchal. We live in a culture where women just aren't believed, and I witnessed it just firsthand through in a lot of really unfortunate situations that I was watching growing up.
And when you maintained telling her story as well as telling Zach's story, were there ever any confrontations or ever any moments where Zach didn't want you to film or didn't want you to tell certain aspects of his story? Would he try to hide them?
Not that I could tell. I mean, this is what's interesting. I mean, I told them early on, hey, we're going to show you a version of the film that's right before we picture lock, because we want to give you a chance to, tell us, hey, like you're doing wrong by me, or you're grossly misrepresenting me. So that I felt like was the biggest thing that helped me get through, navigating this. But as far as Zach, I just sort of I asked him on camera sometimes, like, how do you feel about the things we've been capturing? And every time he'd say, like, what you get is what you get. You're getting me. Like, like this is like I don't even need to see the film before it comes out. I think for him, he's really jumping off a cliff, and I think
Do you think in some ways it was a kind of a call for help for him? Like he knew that this could potentially come out and show everybody else the things that he had been. I realize we're psychoanalyzing someone.
No, this is good. I love this. This is like how I live in psychoanalysis.
But I'm fascinated. It does seem to me like he knows the behavior that he's doing is wrong, but maybe he can't stop it. He doesn't know how to stop himself from doing it. And so therefore, if he allows you to depict it, allows other people to see it, that will be enough of a shock to the system that could potentially stop him.
Here's a theory that I actually just came up with while you were talking about that. I think, so I'm pretty certain that he felt like he didn't have a lot of sense of control in his life when he was a child. He felt trapped. He felt like he had to run away. He felt like he couldn't express himself. He felt like all the things that he cared about, nobody validated, like no adults like validated enough. And I think that emotion sort of like led him to, do things like hurt himself, like sort of like do things that sort of like, like makes him hit that trajectory of like needing to hit rock bottom. And it's like people talk about this with anorexia and cutting, right? It's like you can't control externally, at least I'm going to control like, like this pain that I inflict upon myself. And I think, like him running, at one point he sort of like abandons everything. He abandons his family basically. And he sort of like hits rock bottom. And I think, him doing this film might have been an act that parallels that as well. Like, I'm going to bear because when I finally showed him the film, this is what he said. He was like, I thought you were going to portray me way worse. Like, I'm relieved actually. And I think it said a lot about how he felt about himself, and like this aspect of like needing to just hit rock bottom in order to maybe even get attention and like just feel like his life and his experiences validated.
To feel like people wanted to help him, or to feel like, yeah, I guess maybe you're right, maybe validated. The film's been finished for a couple of years now, right? A year and a half?
Yeah, we premiered January 2018 at Sundance, so yeah, over a year. Yeah.
Can I ask, how is Zach doing?
He's, he's definitely, even when the film premiered, it had been like a year and a half before like we filmed this. Like when he hit rock bottom, it was sort of like winter of 2015. And then ever since then, he sort of came back and found his groove. He's still with Sam, who he ends up with, in the third act of the film. They are engaged. They have a child on the way. He just bought a house. He's actually gonna go get a new job doing this restoration company. He actually last summer he got casted as a lead in a SAG fiction film. And he plays this dad who runs away from his two kids and his wife because of, inner demons.
There's a part of me that's very happy for him, and there's a part of me that is also like, yeah, acting, sure, that's exactly what that guy needs.
Yeah. But I think like in the film, he sort of talks about this dual life he has to live because he represses like so much of what he actually feels. And he talks about wearing a mask, and I think I feel like a lot of like tortured men sort of like feel that way. But
He's very much a charismatic performer.
he's such a charismatic performer. And he knows that. He knows how to use it. And so what's interesting is like when he's doing this film, he's getting forced to go into these situations. Like he told me, I visited him on set one day, and he's like, it's loosely scripted, so it's a lot of improv, and they do just a lot of takes. And he said there was this one scene where he had his gun in his lap, and his 2 daughters in the bedroom over, next to him sleeping. And he's told to think about committing suicide. And he thought back to a real time in his life when he wanted to he had those thoughts, and he thought about his son. And he said he cried so much in just doing take after take of that scene. And in a way it was like drama therapy for him.
Was there, you're at this point, you're maybe in the midst of editing the film, or maybe you finished editing the film, and you're having this conversation with him, and he's on the set of this movie. Were you thinking to yourself, God, maybe I should just be filming this too? Should I be getting this?
No, I think there's like a self-awareness that is gonna always be there now. I think there was like what makes this film so, I think, intimate and vulnerable partially is because just no one really knew what. Even me to a certain extent, we didn't really know what this project was going to be. I mean, they were so surprised at just everybody else's candidness in the film. They were so surprised that I was in the film, that my story was in the film. But I think doing it now, I think there's this extra layer of understanding of like, how this is going to get translated into film story.
There's been, for the last few years, rightfully, there's been a big conversation about toxic masculinity in its many different forms. And one of the fascinating parts of this film is that you're depicting a subculture that helped these kids escape from toxic masculinity in their homes, but at some points also exacerbated it in a way. Do you feel that way about skateboarding at all, or do you feel like it was mainly an escape?
I feel like skateboarding is really, really good at fixing the present, but not the past or the future. I think skateboarding is a pause button. I don't think it's a panacea. It's a pause button that's very, very needed, and I think it's a lubricant that keeps people from sort of experiencing more unhealthy things. But at the end of the day, skateboarding can't help you become a better father. It can't necessarily help you get a GED directly. I mean, what it's really good for is catharsis and getting in touch with, especially as you get older as a man, like you have less room and you feel more pressure to not express your emotions. And like part of the way that we show skateboarding in the film, we show it on purpose. It's a feminine feeling. It gets you back in touch with that feminine side that, we all are born with, but that we slowly have to repress. I mean, skateboarding to me feels more like dancing than it does like kickboxing or MMA fighting.
Well, it's so much about core, and it's about the way that you move your feet and balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, just like you feel free, and it's like, you can, I feel like when I go skate, like today, like I find myself like boyishly shrieking a lot, it's just like such.
Did you skate today?
I skated a couple of days ago. I got this gash.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
right.
I'm putting on your mic.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You premiered 2018 January Sundance. Did you ever expect that you would get to this point where you're going to be going to the Oscars with this film?
No, I did not. I don't know. I mean, when I first started the project, it was like, it's just gonna be like my past couple of films. Maybe I'll rent out a little community theater and like make some DVDs or something.
And now, because even upon its initial release, like when did you start feeling like it was gaining a lot of momentum?
There's a lot of intermediaries there. Like when Kartemquin came on board, it was like, this is validating. When we got into the film.
Kartemquin, excuse me, is that Steve James's company or
Steve
the company
James
that worked with?
Yeah, it's like Steve James came and worked on them with Hoop Dreams a little bit before them, but it was founded in the '60s. It started as this activist, verite documentary collective almost, and it still has that spirit a little bit. But yeah, it's like the company that Steve James works out of.
Okay. And so when they came on, it started to feel like there was momentum, and then you go to Sundance. You won an award at Sundance, right? And then you have this release where it's in theaters for a little bit, and then it gets released on Hulu. And I remember when it got released on Hulu, everybody just started watching it all of a sudden. Like everybody that I knew was like, "Have you seen Minding the Gap?" And I was like, "Yeah, it came out a while ago." I just saw it. It's like, and they're like, and everybody started talking about it. Did it feel like at that point when it was released on Hulu that there was another sort of surge?
Yeah, I sort of like started thinking about this film. I mean, this film is really hard to market, and it's hard to even explain and describe in words like what it is. Like a lot of people have told me that after seeing the film.
I've done that with people where I've told them to watch it and they say, "What's it about?" And I just say it's a skateboarding movie because I don't want them to know. I don't want them to see all of the layers because I actually, when I saw it, I didn't know anything about it other than it was skateboarding. And so watching the layers get peeled to me was one of the most rewarding aspects of the watch because you never expect it. You never expect you to just continue probing deeper and deeper and deeper into these issues in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, the part of the balance for me is to just, like if you include the word skateboarding doc, that term is such a baggage. It's like you automatically, oh, it's that film, it's that type of film. But I mean, there's like 10 minutes of skateboarding in it if you like calculate it. But at the same time, yeah, you don't want to give away too much because part of the experience is that just there's like a reveal every 5 minutes. There's another reveal, and there's I mean it's tough. But the one thing I discovered at Sundance was that we premiered sort of late in opening weekend, like Sunday at 5:30, and looking back, I think I kind of liked that it happened like that. At first, it's like, oh no, like everyone's gonna be leaving and they're gonna be like, like hungover.
Late into opening weekend, so
Yeah, because like
okay.
after opening weekend, like a lot of industry
Yeah.
and people just like it's just like
By Monday,
ghost
everyone's
town.
gone.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what happened was that
It's so like precocious of you though anyway to be like past the point of happy about going to sleep.
yeah,
and
no,
be
I'm already like
oh,
calculating.
the wrong day.
Yeah. No, no, I wasn't. But no, I wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't like overcome with that. It was just like a thought, just a thought. Yeah, and then like what happened was like it premiered and just people talked about it, and then more people saw it, and more people talked about it. Like we saw it as like it's a word of mouth film. Like that's the best. It's an organic word of mouth film, and I feel like with the Hulu release, even today, I think it's just. It's a recommendation film. Like I think that's the best way that's the best way for it to surprise people in the way that it is.
People ask famous actors and actresses all the time, and it's like, and I don't really care because it's like they were waiting to find this out. They were in a hotel room at 5:30 in the morning, like waiting for the announcement, But someone like you, this is your first feature, it's sort of been like this gradual climb. Where were you and what was it like when you found out that you were nominated for an Oscar?
So I was in bed with the flu, and I was just like had takeout soup containers all around me. I couldn't sleep that night, so I was like binge watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then.
Were you expecting? Did you think that there was any chance? Because you had already been shortlisted, right? Mm-hmm. So were you like preparing to watch and did you expect it at all?
I was preparing to lose. I was like, I spent like basically for the past few weeks just preparing to like not make the list and like move on with my life. But when I tuned in and we made the nomination, I was just like, okay.
What the fuck? What do you mean, okay?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't want to. I mean, anybody that knows me, everyone probably has this person in their life where it's like, how are you like not reacting to this happy thing? Yeah. Why are you sad at your birthday? Like I'm that guy. I'm like sad at my birthday.
Were there people around you, or were you alone?
I was alone. I was just like sick. No one wanted to be around me because I was sick, and I was like, even my roommates didn't want to like come to my room. And I had to like a shoot in like 3 hours, so I had to take a Tylenol and like just move on with the day. So, but my producer Diane, there's video of her just freaking out. Like her husband's filming her, and she's just like freaking out.
Well, someone's got to freak out when you're nominated for an Oscar. I think we have one question from the audience. Who has a question? Right here. Hi.
Hi. I'm a film student, and we get asked a lot, like, what made you decide to do film, or like, what was kind of like your aha moment? I want to make movies, and I just wanted to know, like, what was that for you?
I mean, I don't know if this is gonna like be that useful, but it was just a film that I saw when I was like 16. It's this weird Richard Linklater film called Waking Life. It's like this guy wandering around. He can't get out of this lucid dream, and it's all rotoscoped over by different artists. And it's essentially the film is one big just earnest inquisition. There's just like this angsty sort of existential character study of people trying to give answers about life. And I was like, oh, and so like my first like foray into trying to do something outside of a skate video was like kind of like that actually.
So you were already making skate videos at that point, like shooting your friends and cutting them together?
Yeah, but it was like, I mean, like skate video, like independent skate video, like as a culture, it's it's a little bit more. But I think like now people think of it as like iPhone footage and like random YouTube videos. But in the 2000s, I feel like every crew at a skate video filmer, they worked on a skate video for 4 years. They meticulously put it together. Like everyone's sort of like nitpicking about which tricks go in, and then you premiere it at a skate shop or a theater. You press it on DVDs. And then, like people, it's the skate communities from around the country, like tune in and like order DVDs. And it's sort of this ecology in its own little genre. And so that's what I was a part of.
So you were already sort of shooting and into photography and thinking about the technical side of filmmaking, but then you saw Waking Life, and for you that was, oh, you can do this with movies too.
Yeah, it's in a weird way. Yeah, I mean, but because I didn't go to film school, I went to school for literature because I was going to become a high school English teacher. Like that was my goal, and then I was going to write on the side. But so.
But that's smart. I do feel like you can't tell a story in movies if you don't read stories enough. Like the best filmmakers are also really good readers as well.
I hope so, yeah. I hope maybe there's an illiterate filmmaker out there just making amazing.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. But you should learn how to read illiterate filmmaker.
Yeah, no.
Hypothetical illiterate
It might
filmmaker.
probably help you out. Yes, I agree.
Take a break from filmmaking for a year, learn to read, maybe go back after. Bing, I love the film so much. Congratulations. It's such a worthwhile choice at the Oscars for you to get nominated. Congratulations. It's an absolutely beautiful film. Bing Liu, everybody. Let's
Thanks
hear
so
it.
much.